He had everything: money, power, legacy. Yet the mansion echoed with a silence even gold couldn't fill. She used her silence as a weapon, her loyalty as a mirror. And when the truth finally came out, the billionaire didn't just lose his power. He discovered she wasn't just a maid. He had never seen her before in his life. What he discovered next will shock you. If you're just tuning into this channel, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Also, tell us where you are watching. Mr. Whale thought the storm had passed. Miriam had survived. The poison had left her system. Her eyes had regained their gentle light. Whale had done everything. Hired the best doctors, paid every bill, and even gifted her a small, clean flat near the hospital. But something in the air didn't feel right. It was too calm, too still, like the quiet before a new storm. Every evening, he visited her. No flowers this time. No dramatic speeches. Just a quiet presence. The kind that says, "I'm sorry," without words. Miriam, now recovering slowly, would sit on her small balcony, wrapped in a shawl, sipping warm tea. She was healing, but not just her body. Her silence had weight now, like she was seeing something others couldn't. One evening, as Whale was about to leave, he accidentally dropped a folder. It spilled open on the floor. Contracts, documents, one file marked in red, board meeting confidential. He bent quickly to gather them, but Miriam had already seen enough. Not the details, but the tone, the fear in his fingers, the look in his eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked gently. Whale forced a tired smile. "Just business." But that night, Miriam couldn't sleep. Something wasn't right. The last time she had ignored her instincts, it had nearly cost her life. She had once cleaned his floors. Now she might be the only one who could clean the mess that threatened to ruin him. The next morning, Miriam made a quiet decision. She got dressed, tied her hair, and walked to Whale Tech headquarters for the first time. Not as a maid, but as someone determined to protect the only man who had truly protected her. Whale was surprised to see her. "I thought you were still recovering," he said. "I am," she replied softly. "But whatever's eating you alive is spreading fast. Let me help." He hesitated, then slowly nodded. For the next few days, Miriam observed the office quietly. She didn't draw attention. People assumed she was just another assistant. But she listened. She watched. Something was wrong. Papers were disappearing. Files were altered. A junior staff member, Jide, kept acting nervous every time Whale's name came up. One afternoon, Whale's phone rang. He stepped out. In those 5 minutes, Jide quickly plugged a flash drive into a computer and downloaded a file named Asset Transfers 2023. Miriam saw it, and Jide saw her watching. He panicked and rushed out. She didn't chase. Instead, she made one phone call to Dr. Yusef's cousin, a cybersecurity expert who had helped her once before. "Can you help me trace something?" He said yes. Later that night, they met in a cafe. Miriam handed him a paper with names, dates, and a company email. Within 24 hours, the truth began to unfold. Over $6 million had been quietly moved over 18 months. Fake project names, shell companies, multiple logins from one single laptop, G-Days. But he wasn't working alone. There was another name buried in the code logs. Remy, Whale's nephew. She thought she had come to repay kindness. But what she found could destroy the man she had grown to respect. The next evening, Whale sat in his office, head in hands. Miriam walked in, placed a file on the table, and quietly said, "Before this turns into something worse, you need to see what I found." He opened the file. Silence. The room stayed still for nearly a minute. Then Whale stood slowly. "How did you—" "I told you," she replied. "I may not know how to wear a suit, but I do know how to read people." Whale sat back down, breath shaking. This wasn't over. But for the first time, he wasn't facing alone. The next morning, Mr. Whale arrived at Whale Tech earlier than usual. The building was unusually quiet, not the good kind. It was the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you've arrived at your own funeral. He walked straight into the boardroom. Everyone was already seated. Remy, his nephew, stood by the projector, all smiles, as if nothing was happening. Jide was there too, eyes shifting like a thief in a church. Whale sat down, placed his leather file on the table, and cleared his throat. "Before we begin," he said calmly, "there's something I'd like to show you all." He opened the file and slid 3 documents across the table. Silence. The head of operations picked up one, then looked at Whale in disbelief. "Sir, is this real?" Whale didn't blink. "Very." The document showed unauthorized transfers, ghost project approvals, and access logs, all leading back to Jide and Remy. He built the company with trust, and now trust was the weapon used to break him. Remy stood still, eyes narrowing. "What is this nonsense?" he said, trying to laugh. "Fake. Clearly fake. You're letting rumors." Whale slammed a flash drive on the table. "There are voice notes, messages, transfers. Don't test me today, Remy." The others leaned back in shock. The air changed. For the first time, Remy wasn't smiling. He sat down slowly, lips tight. Jide tried to speak. "Sir, I didn't mean." Whale raised a hand. "Don't." Then, slowly, he stood up and said something no one expected. "Leave this building." Remy blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Your ID access will be revoked in 10 minutes. The police will contact you both." The room stayed silent. But inside Whale's chest, something was roaring, not anger. Relief. He wasn't just fixing the company. He was finally cleaning his legacy. Meanwhile, Miriam had returned to her small apartment. The peace was back. But peace doesn't erase memories. She sat at the window, sipping tea, wondering if she'd done too much or not enough. Then her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She picked up. A voice on the other end whispered, "They know what you did." Click. Call ended. She froze. She wasn't afraid for herself. But Whale! He was still inside a building filled with snakes. She quickly texted him, "Don't eat or drink anything from the office kitchen. Someone is still watching." Back at Whale Tech, a secretary had just walked in with tea. Whale reached for the cup, then paused. His phone buzzed. Miriam's message. He froze, then slowly put the cup down. He stared at it. What if... He called Dr. Youssef again. "Can you test something?" That same afternoon, the test came back. The tea was laced. Not enough to kill, just enough to make him weak. Confused. Slow. Sabotage. From inside. Again. That evening, Whale didn't go home. He drove to Miriam's apartment and knocked gently. She opened the door, surprised to see him. He looked tired. Older, but calmer. "I didn't drink the tea," he said. She smiled faintly. "Good." He stepped in, sat down quietly, and said, "I don't understand. Why do they hate you?" She looked down. "They don't hate me," she said softly. "They hate what I see." He tilted his head. "I see the cracks they hide, the lies they live with, the masks they wear. People like me, we're not supposed to see anything." Whale nodded slowly. And then he asked a question he'd been holding in for weeks. "Why did you really come back?" She looked him in the eyes. "You were the first person who looked at me and didn't see dirt. I came back because you were worth saving. Sometimes it's not love or money that saves you. Sometimes it's the quiet loyalty of someone who simply sees your soul." The next morning, Whale made one final decision. He called his lawyer. "I want to change my will." The lawyer paused. "All right, sir. What changes?" Whale exhaled. "Cut off Remy. Completely. No shares. No properties." "And Miriam?" the lawyer asked gently. Whale smiled. "Add her name." The lawyer blinked. "Are you sure?" Whale nodded. "She didn't ask for it. That's exactly why she deserves it." 3 weeks later, things had calmed down. Miriam had resumed part-time work. Not as a maid, but helping Whale organize charity programs, staff vetting, and community outreaches. It was her idea. "Don't give me power I didn't earn," she had said. But Whale knew. She had already earned more than power. She had earned peace. One Thursday afternoon, as Whale walked into his study, an envelope lay on the table. No sender. No markings. He opened it. Inside were 6 old photos. Miriam, younger, thinner, standing beside a woman he vaguely recognized. One photo had something scribbled in the corner. If you really knew who she was, you wouldn't be this kind. Wales started. What did this mean? He picked up his phone, dialed a private investigator. Find out who sent this. Quietly. Just when you think peace has arrived, the past knocks, and it doesn't always come politely. Later that evening, Wales sat with Miriam in the backyard of the mansion, sipping tea under the stars. He slid the envelope toward her. I need to ask, do you know this woman? Miriam's eyes locked onto the photos. Her hand froze. A long pause. That's my mother, she said finally. But I don't know who sent these. Whale leaned forward. What is this about, Miriam? I don't care what your past holds, but I need to know if something's coming I should be ready for. She looked at him, not with fear, but with sadness. Then she began. My mother wasn't always poor, Miriam said slowly. She used to be one of the chief nurses in a military hospital. One day, she treated a wounded boy. He had no name, no family. She hid him, fed him, protected him. But he wasn't just anyone. He was the son of a rebel leader. When they found out, they called it treason. She was fired, branded. We had to move every 2 years. Miriam's eyes glistened. That's how I grew up, running, watching, hiding. Wales swallowed hard. She wasn't guilty, Miriam whispered. Just kind. And in this world, kindness is often punished. Meanwhile, Wales' investigator returned. They had tracked the sender of the envelope. It was an old family associate, one who had always wanted to buy out Wales' estate. Someone who had once made Remy an offer to betray Whale and take over Whale Tech. The enemy wasn't just from outside. It was someone Whale had shaken hands with. That night, Whale made a final decision. I'm selling the estate, he told Miriam the next morning. She looked shocked. Why? This house holds too much noise, too many ghosts, and it nearly cost you your life. Miriam was quiet. Where will you go? Whale smiled gently. I don't know yet. Maybe somewhere small. Humble, where I can breathe again. He looked at her. I want you to come with me. But Miriam paused. I can't, she whispered. Whale blinked. Why? Because you need to finish this chapter, not skip to a happy ending. You need to face everyone who tried to break you, and forgive yourself for letting them. I'm not your reward, Mr. Whale. I'm your reminder. Whale sat back and realized she was right. He had found peace, but he hadn't earned closure yet. Sometimes we meet people who aren't meant to stay forever, but to help us clean the mirror we've been afraid to look into. That week, Whale invited every single former staff member, partner, and even the board to a charity gala. They expected announcements. What they got instead was a confession. I used to think success meant silence, he said on stage. But silence almost buried me. I judged loyalty by how much someone bowed, but the real angels didn't kneel. They stood up for me when I wasn't watching. Everyone was quiet, and then he said something no one expected. Miriam, please come up here. Gasps. She walked up the stage. Slowly. Calm. Elegant. He turned to the crowd. You all called her Maid. Witch. Manipulator. But this woman, this quiet girl in slippers, saved my company, my life, and my soul. He held up a signed document. And today, she became co-director of Whale Foundation. Fully funded. Fully in charge. She wasn't just a maid. She was a mirror. And when he looked closely, he saw the man he had always wanted to be. 2 months later, the mansion that once echoed with silence was now being emptied. Mr. Whale had officially stepped down from Whale Tech's daily operations. His decision had shocked investors, but not his heart. He knew it was time. Whale walked through the marble hallway, pausing at a photo of his late parents. I spent so long building things to impress ghosts, he muttered. Then he laughed softly, not bitter, but free. He wasn't running anymore. He was moving forward. That evening, as the last few items were packed, he noticed a handwritten envelope resting gently on his piano. For you, it was Miriam's handwriting. He sat down, hands trembling slightly, and began to read. Dear Mr. Whale, I don't know how to say goodbye, maybe because I never really planned to, but sometimes the most respectful thing we can do is walk away quietly when we've done what we came to do. You taught me something I never knew I needed, safety, not the kind that locks you in, but the kind that lets you breathe. I'll always be grateful. Don't search for me. Don't feel sad. If fate ever brings us back together, I hope it's on a day when we both carry nothing but peace. Miriam. Whale sat still, letter pressed to his chest. He didn't cry. He smiled. A real one, because now he finally understood. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to awaken the part of you that was asleep for too long. 1 year later, Whale now lived in a modest home near a quiet lake. He volunteered twice a week, mentored young business owners, and wrote journals he never published. He wasn't rich anymore, not in money, but in clarity, in silence, in peace. 1 year anniversary. A special event was hosted by the Whale Foundation, now run by someone else. He was invited as a guest of honor. He wore a simple gray suit, no bodyguards, no gold cufflinks. Just a man showing up. As he sat among the crowd, a speaker took the stage to introduce someone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the director of our new shelter for women and children, a woman who needs no introduction. Whale looked up and froze. It was her, Miriam, in a navy blue dress, hair pulled back, poise quiet, eyes strong. She walked up to the mic and smiled. Some of you may know me as a former housemaid, she began. But titles don't tell full stories. What matters is what we do when no one is clapping. She spoke of courage, kindness, starting over. But then, just for a second, her eyes met Whale's. No words, no drama, just mutual peace. He once thought she needed saving, but in the end, she saved him without asking for anything in return. After the event, Whale stepped outside into the cool evening air. She was already there, standing near the parking lot, watching the stars. He walked up beside her, quietly. No hello, no big speech, just presence. After a pause, she said, You look rested. He smiled. I am. Another pause. Then Whale said something unexpected. This time, I'm walking beside you, not behind, not ahead, just beside. She turned to him slowly, and for the first time since that note, she didn't walk away. They didn't hug or kiss. They just stood there, two people who had been broken, healed, and rebuilt, not by romance, but by truth. He thought he had everything, but it took losing his comfort, his pride, and almost a woman who asked for nothing to understand what everything really meant. Not power, not gold, just peace, and someone who brings light, not noise. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, drop a comment, hit like, and share with someone who still believes in quiet angels. Until next time, stay human.